All right. Last discussion question I have for you guys. And this one can kind of go a lot of ways. I have a couple
Sure
names in
can.
my head here, but who is the most underrated or undervalued Hall of Famer? So for me, I always bring up Paul Molitor.
Yep.
For me, that's the name I always, and a close second is Larry Doby. Those are two names we never hear, we never talk about. You don't hear baseball pages talk about these guys.
No,
You look at Paul Molitor's numbers, holy hell, man. Like, holy hell
they
is
were
all
good.
I have to say about that.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
But yeah, so I always lean towards Paul Molitor because he was just a quiet guy. Like you never heard anything about him. And he just went about his business and just smoked everybody. He got 3,319 career hits, 234 homers, 306 career batting average, 504 stolen bases, 605 doubles. I mean,
Yeah.
605 doubles is wild. 1,000 walks, only 1,200 strikeouts in his career. That's in 21 years, mind you. I mean, God, no one talks about how good that guy was. Absolute machine. So it's Paul Molitor for me, and Larry Doby a close second. Again, another guy that nobody talks about.
I love both of those.
Mhm.
Um, a few names for me that always come up. Bert B. Home Blyleven. Um, Blyleven, his 287 wins, a 3.31 ERA. It took him 14 years to get in. He's only an All Star twice. Never won a Cy Young award, even when he led the league in ERA plus. Um, a guy that just he consistently won games, pitched well, and got like no respect when he was playing, and then sat on the ballot forever before he actually got in. And you look at the career numbers, it makes you shake your head. Like, how did the guy spend so long waiting? 3,701 strikeouts.
Yeah.
How does it take 14 years
Yeah.
to elect that guy?
Uh,
Like, mind blowing.
mhm.
Another one for me is Eddie Murray. He's got more career RBIs than Willie Mays, and yet he's kind of like just another guy in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
He was a machine. Like, just an absolute. But that's the problem. Like, he was so consistent. You just expect him to hit 20 home runs, driving a boatload of runs, and he just did it year in, year
Yeah.
out.
I think what's tough for guys like Murray and Molitor is they were on multiple teams,
Mm,
right? And as good
for
as
sure.
they were never the guy on
That's
one
fair.
team for a long period of time, right? Molitor, Twins, Brewers, Blue Jays, right? Eddie Murray, Orioles, Indians. Like he can't kind of bounce around too, right? So like he
Yep.
was never the guy, the focal point of an offense for more than a few years. I think that kind of hurts them in that aspect of not being talked about, but still doesn't diminish what they did on the field, man. Absolutely insane.
No. And another guy that I've kind of grown to appreciate over the years, having, he's come up a lot on this show and other shows, is Al Kaline.
Yeah.
This is a guy who finished in the top 10 in MVP voting like 9 or 10 times, never won one, consistently put up crazy good numbers, but was overshadowed by all those Yankees players of the 50s and 60s. And, was always kind of like he was always kind of like with the other guy, but he wasn't one of the Yankees. And
Mhm.
a guy that we used to see on the Home Run Derby show, I mean, 18-time All-Star, 10 Gold Gloves, and some stupid good numbers, but was overshadowed by so many other players in that era.
Yeah. The other guy I have here in the middle, Gary Carter. I
Mm,
mean, we're a catcher, right? Hall of Fame,
yep.
obviously. 11-time All Star, 3-time Gold Gloves, Clemente Award, 5-time Silver Slugger. Montreal and the New York Mets is kind of where he, made his name. But as one of the top catchers ever, we don't really talk about him when we talk about all-time catchers. I mean, I do hear his name here and there. I'm not saying I don't hear his name at all, but it's Bench, it's Pudge Rodriguez, it's those guys. Gary Carter's name is down on the list, and it probably shouldn't be. Um, so Yeah,
Yeah.
Gary Carter's another one for me. There's some great ones in here. Al Simmons,
Oh, good
good
one.
one. Tom Glavine, yeah, I mean, fairly newly elected. No one really talks about how him because he's kind of overshadowed by Maddox. Let's be real, right?
Yeah, everybody lived in Greg's shadow.
Yep. But 300 plus wins doesn't get mentioned unless you talk about him and Maddox. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Ernie Banks is a good one, having never played in the postseason.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Baseball playoffs were a different animal back then, but yeah, Ernie Banks for me, I think is you might agree or disagree with me. I think he's rightly rated. Now, we didn't you didn't talk about power hitting shortstops until Ernie Banks, right? 512 homers, all that. I know half of his career was spent at first base, which a lot of people don't realize that.
Right.
Which I kind of just found out not that long ago myself that he played that many games at first base. But 512 career homers, like that was the benchmark. Shortstops didn't hit for power. And then when we started to talk about power hitting shortstop, we heard Ernie Banks's name a lot more because, players were getting up to that 512 homer mark. So, yeah, but still, yeah, underappreciated, never made the postseason. Crazy. But yeah, you had the best record in the AL, you went to the World Series, best record in the NL, went to the World Series, and then that was it. So there was no extended playoff format that there is now.
Yeah, and the the Cubs just weren't great in that time frame, and it's not his fault. And I do think that the whole position thing is also, I think Ernie Banks career is a little bit complicated, but also not necessarily remembered well because and he did play more career games at first base and shortstop, which almost nobody knows or realizes unless you pay close attention to the game. He really was more of a first baseman than a shortstop. I mean, he had some massive seasons as a shortstop, but in that era, 50s and 60s, the headlines were dominated by other players on other teams who were winning. And Ernie Banks just consistently went out there and put up numbers on teams that really didn't matter.
Right.
And so because of that, I think he just kind of gets forgotten. I will say one guy that I think is worth mentioning in the Hall of Fame is Jackie Robinson. I feel like too often he's viewed as only the guy that broke the color barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And people kind of forget that he was actually a pretty good baseball player too.
Right.
But he didn't come up till he was like 28 years old. He got a late start and he didn't have a very long career because he was already 28. The game was different back then and he lived in a very different era. But he was more than just the guy that broke the color barrier. Like he could play. He was an impact player and a difference maker when he was on the field. And I know I'm guilty of it. Not really appreciating what he did as a ball player, just appreciating what he did in terms of changing the culture of baseball.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point because I think, like even in grade school, like we go through like, Black History Month and we celebrate that and all the incredible Americans that made a difference in civil rights, right? And he's always brought up. So a lot of like America is almost molded to think that like first thing you hear Jackie Robinson, it's like bang, color barrier. You don't think about the baseball or the athletic, let's just say athletics across the board because he was like a 4-sport athlete too.
Crazy good.
Yeah. So I don't think you're right. I don't think his game is valued as it should. I nailed it. That's a great one.
Yeah. And I'm totally guilty of that. Like I don't know his career well enough. I just kind of like put him in the bucket of he broke the color barrier.
Right.
But then you actually like look at his numbers and your rookie of the year, MVP, top 10 2 more times, top 25 more times. Like he was 63.9 more in 11 years. I mean, this guy was consistently at the very, very top of the league. And I think that just sometimes gets forgotten that he was more than just the guy that changed baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Curtis. Jackie Robinson is one of the greatest all-around athletes all time, period.
Yeah.
I agree. Like his story is insane. And his athletic prowess was nuts. But yeah, absolutely. Anybody else that kind of sticks out to you as maybe an undervalued Hall of Famer that you can think kind of like off the top of your head? Kind of like going down through the list right now. I'm like, yeah, I mean, could make an argument, but
Yeah, I
maybe
mean, there's
not.
and like there's a lot of. I mean, I will say one guy I think that was again complicated. Like Tim Raines was an interesting one. But a guy, he's the only guy in history with 100 triples, 150 home runs, and 600 steals.
Yeah,
And one of only 4 players with at least 700 extra base hits and 800 steals. But like he was a very unique player for what he did
right.
because he did a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
And I know that like it took a little bit of time for him to get elected because people weren't really sure what to make of his career.
Right. Yeah, he's a great one.
I mean, look at Andrew Jones. Here's a guy, Andrew
Yeah.
Jones, that we were like, he is for sure. And the people were like, well, batting average, pointing at something about his game they didn't like that took a little bit too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic ones. So that was I love that discussion because again, like what I love about this show and everybody in the chat is like we all value baseball in a different way. We all look at players in a different light. We respect a different part of their game. And that's what makes baseball so incredible to talk about because none of our opinions are wrong. And we just like celebrating different things. Like I might not value batting average as much as Harrison does or speed or whatever. So that's what makes these discussions kind of fun. So
Yep.
love that.
Curtis snuck one in. Andre Dawson. That's another good one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Again, another guy that kind of bounced around on teams where I really do think that holds a big weight into what we're kind of talking about. Like if Andre Dawson stays on the Cubs and wins 5 MVPs, do we talk about him a lot more? I think we do. Right. But since we're Expos and Cubs and Red Sox and kind of Marlins, we're kind of bouncing around there. I think that does take away a little bit from their clout, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it does because like they don't have a connection to any particular place. Like
Right.
they were just a hired gun everywhere they went.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I totally get that.
Yep.
And it makes sense that a lot of the guys that we put in those categories were guys that played in a lot of places.
Yeah. Greg, I think this is a good one. He's like, honestly, I'm in my 30s, but I'd say Eck took a huge part of my life to realize how good he was. And I think that's too. And like him, he was a starter, he was a closer, kind of back and forth there. That's a great one. I don't think I've truly like I saw the tail end of Eckersley. I didn't get to see a bulk of his career, but I didn't really get to appreciate how good that dude was until I saw some clips of him, saw some replays of him. Like, yeah, nasty, but that's a good one for sure.
Yeah, he had a complicated career. The switching, starting, relieving, he did both really well, and then it just he's got a funny career and career path too. Another guy that stopped a few places.
Yep. Yeah, and Matthew, this is a good point. It won't matter how many teams soon with new guys getting eligible. Yeah,
True.
all these guys that are eligible now have been on multiple teams for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, when it comes to the undervalued or underrated, it's the guys that did bounce around and weren't necessarily the best player on their teams during that time.